Welcome to the Mommy Matters podcast, where Mommy Matters is a double entendre that states and declares that mommies matter, where we have conversations surrounding mommy matters, from conception to pregnancy to postpartum, mother and father wounds, dating, mindfulness and self-care, spirituality, parenting, discipline, legislation, money, and so much more. It is my hope and my prayer that the information that you gather here serves as a blueprint for generational and individual ascension. Enjoy.
Hi guys, Cecile Edwards here of the Mommy Matters podcast. I have to tell you, if you have not heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Did I tell you that you can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership? It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download your Anchor app or go to Anchor FM, anchor.fm to get started. You will not be dissatisfied.
Oh, there's my water.
All right. Welcome to the Mommy Matters podcast. I am back. We are back because, I love to have my wonderful guests. And this time we are talking about the topic of money. Money, money, money. That's an important topic, I think, for women these days, for mothers, for us to understand for a lot of different reasons that we'll get into during the show. But welcome to the Mommy Matters podcast, where we discuss all things mom and we get into some deep conversations, not surface conversations, about motherhood and realness too. I am your host, Cecile Edwards, and today I have a very special guest named Danielle Robinson of Single Mom Money. And when I saw Danielle on, I stalked some people on Instagram, okay? And when I saw the topic of Single Mom Money, I was like, this is so important. I have to have a conversation with her. And in my normal style, I just simply sent a message and graciously accepted. So thank you for accepting. And I think this is
absolutely
a great conversation because we often, number one, who don't talk about single motherhood. I don't want to say we don't talk about it in constructive ways, but I feel like we don't talk about it in constructive ways. And there's this whole stigma and this whole, thing around single mothers that people tend to shun or tend to feel a hopelessness or a heaviness around the topic. And I think that this platform for Single Mom Money is a great way to have a different kind of conversation with women in general around money for so many reasons. First of all, you never know how you're going to become or how you could become a single mother. It doesn't have to be, for the reasons that I feel like most people think, right? So, but we'll get into all of that. Anyway, Danielle, let's have you introduce yourself and talk about how and why you started your movement. And yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I was probably more excited that you were sending the message to receive it because I do a little Instagram stalking myself. So when I saw your page, I was like really, really on board with your whole movement. So again, thank you for having me. But as you mentioned, my name is Danielle Robinson. I am a single mom based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am the founder and the creator, all of that good stuff behind Single Mom Money. So Single Mom Money is primarily a YouTube channel, actually. So I do YouTube videos on budgets and finance and just really basic personal finance matters. But I also kind of try my best to keep up on social media on Instagram as well. And single mom money was really born out of this time period in my life where I became a single mom sort of unexpectedly. I, had been married, very intentionally, had my child, while I was married, things like that. And I was that person that was by the rules or by the book or whatever you want to call it for most of my life. So long story short, I ended up as a single mom with a 4-year-old at the time. And luckily, I had a bit of a finance background. I had worked in finance for a number of years, so I knew a little bit about investing, but a lot more about budgets and stuff like that. And I used all of that plus just my sheer determination and desire to, turn my life around because I was not in a good place financially when I became a single mother. So all of those life lessons in that year or two, I use that as the foundation for single mom money, and that's where we are now.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that you express your story that way, because we often think that if we, that's why I said, how someone becomes a single mother is,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of us intentionally, well, maybe there are some people, but for the most part, you desire to have a household where your child has uh, access to their father or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
also,
Right.
you also want to be in a situation financially where no matter what,
Right.
you can take care of yourself and your child. So I don't know if anybody says to themselves, I just want to be struggling. I know I never have.
Yeah,
Um,
the likelihood is low.
right, right. And I think this conversation, what just came up for me is that when you are considered, because you can define single mother, I know that question is always there. What is a
Yeah.
single mother? How do you define that, especially in the realm of money?
Yeah. So for me, a single mom is defined as, well, generally a woman or someone who considers themselves to be female um, and has one or more children, and they are the primary person in their household in terms of the money earner. So they're primary money earner and also the primary adult. So if you're a head of household, if you're filing taxes like you mentioned earlier, and you're claiming head of household, or you're single and you have children who are your both best friends in your house, then you probably can categorize yourself as a
Mhm.
single mother. Yeah, a single
Absolutely.
mother.
Absolutely. So you're the primary caregiver financially of a child, or children, then
Their children, right? Yeah.
single mama money would refer to you. Now, there
Mm.
is a whole lot of statistics around
Oh yeah.
single parenting and poverty,
Yep. Yep.
and
They're
it's
not great.
very dismal. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. When I was kind of building my business plan for single mom money, I was wanting to make sure I understood my target audience. And so I did kind of the same thing, looked into all these numbers and research. And you'll find the most recent figures, I believe, came out around like 2012 or 2013 or something. It's been a while. But long story short, most households that are headed by a single mother, just a single parent, but specifically single moms, make on average somewhere in the $20,000 range. Where average, right, yes, income for a household of two parents are like 80,000.
Wow.
So, right. So, I
Mhm.
mean, that's 4 times more than the
Mhm.
average income. So you're talking about, the way that I look at it is like the children's needs don't change.
Right.
So instead of two parents, now you have one parent making $20,000 on average, but they still have children that still have needs and want the same and desire the same sorts of things, probably their counterparts in two-parent households. So now that is amplified, right, in a one or in a single mom household.
Mhm.
The money situation is exaggerated, either good for the good or the bad.
Right.
So I mean, that's on average. And a part of my platform, really, honestly, I'm trying to help empower women and not just budgeting, because people love to talk about budget, and I'm all for budgeting. But if you're broke, it's hard to budget, right? If you are making $20,000 and you have 3 kids, I don't care how many different ways you split that penny, like it can only go so far, right? So part of my platform is really to discuss ways on how to increase your income as well to bridge that gap. But yeah, the statistics are not great. On average, single mom households make a quarter less. I mean, I'm sorry, 3/4 less almost, I believe it is, if I'm doing math right, than our 2-parent households.
Yeah, that brings up so many things for me, because first of all, again, as you said, the needs of the children don't change. Child or children does not change. And so you are literally trying to make $1 out of 15 cents.
Literally,
the thing that on average is needed. And just something as simple as daycare, if you have to go to work. Something as simple and go to work outside of the home, the cost of daycare. I live in New Jersey. So in New Jersey, and I am a caregiver. So I know what I'm paid and I know what I would have to pay to go outside of the home. So, just that alone, $20,000 a year, you figure that's about, give or take $1,500, not even a month.
A month.
And wherever you live, so really to look at that really in depth, you're taking away a lot from the child and their ability to have access to new things. If when we have children, our hope is that they will have access higher for us. But it feels like when, the single parent mindset seeps in, that can be very overwhelming, not to mention the fact that, okay, you want people to make more money, you have to get very creative with how you make more money, because you don't want to spend extra time outside of the household to do that, because now
time and resources are limited.
Exactly, because there's going to be some kind of deficit somewhere, and how we live in a different time, I always say, right? So in this day and age, it's difficult to have the somebody to watch your children, for example, right? There's issues there with breakdown in family structures, where grandma is still working,
right, grandma, right, very much,
or grandma she just don't want to,
right,
or whatever,
grandma's not gonna do it,
right? No matter what you do. So these are all things to consider when you're talking about money. But I think that even single mama money is not just when you're a single mother, but this is for all women to think about their relationship to money. Because to me, the mindset behind how you make and I don't like to use the word spend, but how you make and you circulate your dollars is very, spend to me means that it just goes out. When you have a certain mentality about money, then you think about how you're circulating and what you're feeding it into, so you won't spend as much money, let's say, on junk food when it's not giving you a return that on your investment.
There's no value.
Right.
A big part of my mind shift, I would say, when I started to at least see improvement in my finances, was that I started to spend money a lot of times based more on the value that I was getting from something versus maybe the short term
feel good
effect or feel good, or whatever it was I was getting in the short term. My mindset is very like, marathon. I'm playing the long term game now. I'm not really focused so much on the immediate needs.
And that brings up the conversation about money and emotions, and we talked about that a little bit.
Oh my goodness!
Before, because we have the tendency to spend based on our emotional, attraction to things. I know for me personally, I have stopped spending as much money because, one, I don't watch television.
No, right? That helps. I don't watch television either. Maybe that's a secret.
I think so.
That might be.
Listen, I always say that not watching television has made me less hungry because there's a commercial about everything, every kind of food, and and has kept more money in my pocket. I've even noticed it with my daughter,
and the waist tighter.
Yeah. I've noticed it with my daughter. When we had cable and like during the holidays time, she would see commercials
Mm,
about different toys. She'd be like, Mommy, I want that.
yeah.
Now she doesn't have that ability. I mean, she goes to school
Mhm.
now and now her friends and stuff like that. But I feel like that's less of pressure than the television somehow.
I mean, they make billions of dollars a year off of marketing. It's not for, no reason. So
Hmm.
they have a carefully crafted message to persuade us to spend our money, part ways with our money for things that are probably frivolous. But I want to do a series, and I was just thinking about it because I deal with anxiety, and a big part of me getting better with my finances is learning how to manage my finances when when I'm dealing with high anxiety.
Mm.
Because my way of managing before was to spend by shopping or food,
Yep.
really.
Yep.
So there is certainly an emotional component.
Yep.
I even read a study recently that says something like if you have a long commute, so if you commute and you pass a lot of billboards and you pass a lot of fast food or restaurants, you are more likely to eat more and spend more because it's literally in your face. So, I mean,
Yep.
that could be a secret. You just, mentioned it maybe by happenstance, but it could be that if you reduce your exposure to these sort of marketing things, ploys, perhaps that could be a way to help us
Yeah.
keep the money in our pocket.
I'm telling you what I've experienced. So for me too,
Like I know this.
for me too, I have anxiety, and my anxiety has lessened because of lessening my television.
Yes, I
Right.
agree. Screen time is anxiety inducing for me. So,
Yep. So, I think that looking at ways that we can practice other forms of self-care, because shopping can
mhm,
sometimes be a form of self-care if you're like redecorating your space for
mhm,
more zen or something like that. Then it can be useful, but we do have to start noticing our feelings and what's coming up for us. And I think a lot of
yeah.
it has to do with feeling inadequate because we don't
Oh
have
yeah. Oh
wisely,
yeah.
right? And food is a quick fill up. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
it's buying, a bag or some
Mhm.
shoes or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Of course.
Mhm.
Or all of it.
All of it, all of it. And
Yeah.
so when we think about that, when we think about the lessons that we're teaching our children about managing their
Oh wow.
emotions,
Yeah.
as well
Mhm.
as managing money, we have to consider that, right? And
Mhm.
so, what are some ways that you have practiced or you have seen that parents assist themselves with managing their emotions around single mothers manage their emotions around money? What have you done, specifically, and as well as managing it around teaching their children different habits than
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Mhm. Yeah. I think about that a lot because I have my son, one son, and he's getting older. He's 7. He just turned 7. So now he's really at that point where we can have even more conversations where before, it wasn't really a topic. He
Mhm.
might understand what a dollar was versus change or something like that. But at any rate, I grew up in a two-parent household and probably more middle class. And there wasn't a lot of structure around our finances. So I really, other than watching my mother budget, which thank God she did share some things with me, which were great, like the fact that I knew that she always budgeted her money. I didn't know what she was doing, so that was a piece that I'll share with my son is actually, going through the process with him. But I understood that there should be a plan for your money at the very least. Um, but other than that, we really didn't have conversations about money growing up.
Mhm.
So my intentional piece now with my son is to actually give him money for chores, but I let him know that so much has to be saved, and then I show him when I make deposits, or we go together and make deposits, and I let him make decisions about how to spend his money. But I'll give him guidance, and if he wants to spend, I may give him one or two options to spend from, so he doesn't have like a ton of options in the store, but trying to just add in some structure and some more guideposts for him so that he has a better understanding of how to circulate his money as he starts to get his own. And I've even introduced him to the concept of retirement savings. I mean, as long as your child, if they're a child actor or they got a YouTube channel, or I mean, if they're making money, they can open up a Roth IRA. And so they can start saving
Good
for
information.
retirement right now. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people don't know that. You don't have to be 18 or older to start retirement savings. So he wants to start a business this summer. So I'm helping him, draft up some business plans. So, I want him to break away from the concept I feel like I had as a millennial. My parents are very much baby boomers, and there was this idea like you go to work and you just work hard, and the company will take care of you. And I had this idea in my head when I was married that if I'm a good wife and I was a stay-at-home mom for a little bit, if I do my part, my husband will notice me and my sacrifice, and, he'll take care of me. And so these businesses that were supposed to take care of me, and my spouse was supposed to take care of me, that didn't really work out in my particular case. Not to say that it doesn't,
Right.
but that is kind of, I don't want to say my origin story, but a bit of, my point of reference. So at any rate, I am trying to break that for him so that he understands that his money doesn't have to just come from a 9 to 5, that he can start to earn money right now. He can start to save for retirement right now. There's no reason to delay those conversations. Honestly, I feel that once you get to about 5 years and older, we should start having those conversations.
I think a lot of times you hear people that, learn about money very young, they do well as they get older.
Yeah.
Because, you've been thinking about this for a while and you've been practicing
Right.
for,
And exposed to
for a
just you're
while.
comfortable with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're comfortable with the conversation without having had gone through certain things, right? And have that
Right.
fear around money.
Like me, I had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, I was the opposite. I grew up in a family that was very much working class, and had a single parent for a good amount of the
Mm-hmm.
years. And,
Mm-hmm.
everything around money was very fear induced, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Very, don't spend anything on yourself because that may mean that you may not have a roof over your head.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, so
Yeah.
that had a certain effect on how I spent money once I started making my own, or how I circulated money once I started. Well, at that time I was spending it because I was just giving it out on things that didn't really matter instead of educating myself or saving or not taking out loans and credit cards and,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever.
Oh, yeah. See,
So
we didn't get that far either, even though, maybe my story was slightly different, but we didn't touch on taxes or loans or credit cards. We didn't have those conversations.
yeah, we just did not have, all we knew was, as you said, work, pay the bills,
Yeah.
spend the
Yeah.
rest, and
Yeah.
that's it,
That was
keep up with the
it.
Joneses. This is what it means to
Yeah.
be wealthy. And I'm a
Mhm.
millennial as well. And so a lot of
Mhm.
the things that we saw growing up, we
Yeah.
have to completely reinvent, around that because we don't have the same, pension for life.
No. No.
you
No.
know,
Not even a little bit.
not even nowhere, well, if you're in the government job or something, maybe, but
Yeah, but very few.
very few, not as profound as it used to be. And so we really have to become even steward our ability to invest well even more
Oh yeah.
these
Yeah,
days. And
even
that's
more
something,
so. Yeah.
and Lord knows how it's going to be for our children. We don't even know. Right. So
Yeah.
how it is for us, it's going to change, right, in the next
Mhm.
generation
Yeah.
for them. And so I think having the money conversation and profiting off of your talents is
Mhm.
very, very critical. And we see a lot more people doing that. And I'm very grateful that that is happening.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. This whole gig culture, the Ubers, drivers, and the
right.
Lyft and
Yeah,
Fiverr. Yeah, it's
exactly.
not a phenomenon anymore. I should say. I think it's going to be a staple.
I think so too. I mean, it's just how the society is going. Because as you
Mhm.
said, people either want to make extra money, because I know a lot of people paying off these student loans and all of that. I'm one of them.
Girl, me too.
Okay. And want to get rid of those, as well
Yes.
as just, wanting to do more with their life, travel, have richer
Yeah. Yeah.
experiences and things like that. I think there is danger in overworking though, right? And just doing
Yeah.
gigs all the time. So you really have to
Yeah.
steward your money well
Mhm.
while you're
Mhm.
making that. And as I said before, I don't want to say I'm a gig person, but I have different areas of expertise. So as a coach, as a nanny and an educator, I have all of these
Mhm.
areas and skills that I utilize in businesses. And so, I have to really be conscious of creating goals.
Yes.
When
Yep.
I do make money, I have to know how to manage that well, because as an entrepreneur, it can come and go. So really being
Mhm.
clear about how to use that is very, very important. So I want to talk a little bit, because you touched on it. So we just gonna go there about
Let's go.
about marriage and money.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because we often, well, I feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but there's a narrative going on about
Mm. Mhm.
women not um having, a lot of women don't want to work outside of the household. Some families don't want the women to work outside of the household just because of the
Mm.
cost
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
daycare, you know.
That's how I ended up at home. That's
Because it
exactly
just,
how I ended up at home.
yeah, it doesn't make any good sense. Not just
Mhm.
daycare, not just the cost of daycare, but the nature of education systems. Let's just be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
So those two things, but I feel like there is still a level of understanding and energy that you have to have around money in order to make that work in your
Mhm.
family. And there's certain things that both men and women need to learn about the family structure, and not allowing. I mean, let's face it, finances is the number one reason why married couples fail or falter, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and so there's some critical conversations that need to be had, irrespective. It seems single mom,
Mhm.
because there's
Right. Married mom,
wealthy
whoever's
single moms
mom.
out there, right? It's wealthy
Yeah.
single moms, and if no matter what, I feel like there should be certain levels of protection as a
Mhm.
woman that you have to
Yes.
advocate
Always.
for
Mhm.
around yourself and your children, even when
Yep.
you're married, because anything can happen.
Mhm.
Something can happen to your husband. Something can happen
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
you, and your
Yeah.
husband is left with, So I think those
Yeah.
conversations around insurance,
Yes.
around liquidable
Mhm.
assets,
Assets.
um,
Yep.
savings for the children and for yourself,
Yep.
um, appreciable assets. All of those things need
Mhm.
to be conversations that we need to be having more of.
Yeah.
Yeah, with our children's fathers, whether you're married or not. I mean,
Whoever your partner is. Yeah.
right. This is a
It's
generational
vital.
wealth conversation. This is a
Yep.
conversation about leaving your children a little bit better than
Yeah.
you know. So, did I ask you a question?
I
I don't even know. I'm just
well, I think so, maybe.
hmm
About being married and finances, and I would say that was probably the worst decision I made in the marriage, was not really protecting myself financially. So, and I was the one with the wherewithal about the finances, but I felt like, at some point, I'll get there and I'll be able to start saving again for retirement. So I
mm,
liquidated basically my entire retirement savings up to that point, so that I could stay home with my son, because I had taken a job that didn't really pay well. So his daycare was almost like three-fourths of what I was making at the time. So between gas costs and then the daycare costs and, diapers and all that other stuff, I was actually losing money by going to work. So I stayed home. Part of that plan was using my retirement fund.
mm,
um, and so I pulled money out of there, and it eventually ended up being all of it, because we have just poor spending habits as a couple. So, just because you guys have money, and I tell people all the time, it's not, once you hit a certain level of income, which is usually about $60,000 to $80,000, depending on the size of your family. Once you hit that income level, everything after that is, I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. It's kind of like you are at this point where now you can save, you can pay your bills, you can travel, you're comfortable at 60 to 80,000. After that, if you're losing money, it's all about how you're managing it.
mm,
But at any rate, so we were just poor spenders in general, and we didn't have a plan. And as they say in the Bible, what is this? Two are not if two can't walk together or something in agreement. Basically, we were not on one accord. So he was going left and I was going right. And then in that process, I knew that we were not doing well with our money. So I put off my own retirement, and I didn't have a life insurance policy, which was a huge mistake, even though obviously I didn't need to use it, thank goodness. But I'm a huge advocate of not whole, but term life insurance, as long as you have young children that are not able to work. And I just didn't protect myself financially. So that's how I ended up in the situation where I was living with my son. He's 4 years old, and I had $300 to my name. That was it. And it wasn't because for lack of money. It was just the way that we managed it was horrible. I did not save for myself. I didn't save for my son. I started to, but we used that money as well because we just, again, no plan. We didn't have foresight to look into our futures and see what we really needed. And, but meanwhile, he was saving for his retirement the whole time. He still has a great 401k. But because I didn't work and I used my finances to help kind of bridge the gaps that we had while I was at home, I suffered the most. And what's sad about that, honestly, is like my story is not unique. There's a lot of women with that story, right? And so I tell people all the time, prioritize yourself, protect yourself. I don't care who you with, how much you in love. I was in some sort of fantasy. I don't know where I was. But if I had to do it again.
Ain't nothing wrong with loving your mate. But quite frankly, you got to love yourself more. You got to love your legacy more. And you have to ensure that you do whatever it is that you need to do to ensure that legacy can, and you can live well. Because as you said, I love what you just said, that is self-care. It's taking care of yourself.
It really is self-care.
To be mindful of your finances. It's responsible as an adult to talk about the reality of your finances as an individual and as a couple, no
and
matter what.
We didn't have it.
I mean, I that's a conversation for a whole nother off the air. But
and I tell people I'm doing better financially single with less income than I ever did married. And it's because I have, some sort of structure to what I'm doing. I'm following, again, my plan. I'm focused. I'm intentional in the way that I circulate my money. I'm making decisions on value now and things that I'm choosing to buy things that I appreciate instead of depreciate. So it's a shift completely. And I think that's where it started. It was really my mindset. My mind changed first. And then, it started to manifest physically. But I'm doing way better financially than I ever did married. So again, people get caught on the money and how much money is in the household, but what are you doing with it?
Correct. You could be it. I guess it's easier to be in agreement with your own self than to try to pull in somebody else. I'm just saying. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, to have that single focus. And I've said that many a times. Like, it's not necessarily, yes, it can be, it can feel a little lonely, and we have this perception that we should have somebody. But that somebody can be anybody. It could be a group of sisters. It could be.
Oh man, my girlfriends are like resources for me for all sorts of support and just encouragement and love, that platonic love that I think I just didn't really ever value. And I don't want to keep harping on the value thing, but I didn't really see it for what it was for a long time. Felt like it was insufficient. But they've done more for me than any man probably.
Listen, that's a very valid point, because our sisterhood, our sisterships are very, critical. They are very, very critical. And
really are.
I think in a lot of cases, women, we don't value the level of leadership that we have and influence that we have in relationships. Right. So
we surely don't.
We we need to learn to become more in tune with that, because I think that we can have more influence, and it doesn't have to be a harsh thing. There's a lot of power in
No.
our feminine
Yes. A lot
influence.
of power. Yes.
And so, that is something that we certainly should think about and exercise, whether we're in a relationship or not. And so I think this conversation again around single mothers and money is so critical, because you're right. No matter where you are financially, um, you can certainly do something to make more money. Everybody has some skills or talents, and you can
Yeah.
certainly consider ways that you can save money. You may have to have different conversations. You may not be able to have things that other people have. You may have to go
Yeah.
through
Yep.
different routes and through some different
Yep.
alleys and
Oh
valleys.
yeah. Tell me about it.
Um,
I've been through all of those.
I've been child. But I think that the conversation too about taking care of yourself and is a very specific one. So how women can prepare or consider themselves mentally, physically, spiritually for abundance, and just for how do you shift your mindset? Because you said your mindset shifted. What are some shifts that critical shifts that were made, and how?
So for me, I really, for a long time, I had a lot of resentment around and anger around what I felt my partner or somebody outside of me should be doing for me. So because, I wasn't being spoiled, or I wasn't getting the gifts I thought I should get, or I wasn't being loved in the way I felt like he should love me, or whatever, or whoever.
Yeah.
I kind of gave my power away for a long time, and I was angry about it because I felt like someone outside of me should be doing something for me. And then I realized, and it kind of dawned on me once I became a single mom, that, I didn't have to be resentful about that, and I can own it. I could do those things for myself, and not in this kind of cheeky, take yourself out on a date to the movies or whatever way. Like, I really owned it, and I really, and when I say I own it, I made the shift from being resentful about it to actually being happy to be able to take that on myself and love myself and give myself what I needed. I started to see it more as a blessing and this powerful energy that I had to love on me and not be resentful that somebody else wasn't giving it to me. So that was a big mind shift
Let the church
for me.
say amen.
Yeah, that was a
I know
huge
it
one.
well. I know it well. Yes.
Yeah,
Because
I think a lot of women do.
I think a lot of women do too, because we grow up with these romance, stories. And we, again, depending on what kind of situation we grew up in, we desire that kind of love outside of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the issue
that's not anything wrong with it.
The issue is that we starve ourselves of it from even ourselves until we achieve it from somebody else. And that can't work, because you can't even teach somebody how to do it. Like, you're better able to attract a man that is going to be fiscally responsible. You're going to require it even more because you are. So
like attracts like. So I mean, I will tell you, the people I'm meeting now in terms of in a dating capacity are entirely different grade of men. And I'm heterosexual, so I date men, but I know not everyone does, but the point is, no matter the energy, feminine or masculine or whatever, what you attract will be, what you are, essentially. At least that's what I'm finding.
Exactly. Like, you're not living in a fantasy. You're very clear about your values. There's nothing wrong with talking about values.
Very clear.
Very clear about your values. You do
on
not.
The very first date, we're having conversations. Yes.
Right. Exactly. On the very first date, and you're being mindful of how they're, and then I feel like also you don't have, if you're a dating single mother, you don't have this obligation that you feel like somebody needs to fulfill.
Right.
And you don't feel the need to jump in to something.
No rushing. Yes,
because you're like, I need somebody to take care of this or whatever.
Yep.
So,
I will very easily, I don't want to say dismiss, but I know when I'm not aligned with someone, and then it's okay to let that go.
Yep, because you're not looking for anything but your compliment.
exactly. And so
Yes.
when I find him, then we'll move forward. And when I don't, it's fine.
Mm,
I don't go home and lose sleep over it.
exactly. So I have like one more question about money, money and spirituality, because we don't often
Yeah, sure.
think that those go together, but they do,
No, they very much do. Very much, yes.
depending on no matter your belief. I think that the divine God, Allah, whatever it is you believe in, desires for us to live an abundant life. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
believe
most
that,
certainly, in all ways.
yeah, I don't believe that being a single mother is a death sentence
No,
to your ability to be wealthy at all. There's plenty
nope,
of
at all.
cases of single parent mothers that, have triumphed and, as you said, even done
Hmm.
better without
Yes.
a mate, because there was no energy being pulled away from them into the
Oh,
mate,
girl.
the mate. And as opposed, so they were able to really steward them well. But anyway, so I want to know about I could go on and on. Your connection with spirituality and money and how that has helped you
So for me, I would say I really do, and then you probably have already found that out because I mentioned it a few times that there's energy to things, and money is just energy. That's all it is. It's just this exchange. And so we didn't really touch on it after I kind of got over that anger and resentment I was holding on to for a long time. I started to really, my eyes like became open to this gratitude I had,
through.
and this peace I had about my situation. Like I was just so peaceful,
Yes.
and I had never felt that. And then once I started, I think it's like a Bob Marley quote or something that I could totally be giving him credit when it's not due, but I'm not sure. But anyway, the
We'll
quote
give it to
is,
him anyway.
"When you right, go ahead, Bob Marley." But it goes something like, "When you aren't wanting for anything, that's when it comes to you." So it's like that
Let go.
resistance
Yes.
all the time.
Oh, hello, Danielle, are you there? No, I'm not hearing you. No, that was a good part. So while we wait for Danielle, you know, the conversation basically is, again, energy. Money is energy. So if you continue to give yourself or give money the stank eye, or continue to try to think that it has to come from outside of you, if you continue to feel like you are not a abundant and wealthy person, then guess what? That's the experience that you're going to live. Right? And so we have to be cautious of the ways in which we talk about money, the way that we think about ourselves, whether we're in a relationship or not, around money, the way that we steward our money, and with the way that we circulate it. All of those things have to be a part of the conversation when we are considering money. If you think that only wealthy people are evil, or the way that you even define being wealthy, you do not have to be a billionaire to be wealthy. Okay? You don't. You do have to be free to take the risks around the things that you want to do. That's wealth. Okay? You do have to have the inner drive to stay persistent, to be creative, right? Because when I was a single mother, I would say all the time, I don't need to go out and do a bunch of things. Y'all could come to my house and we could have a gathering right here. Right? Or I could just be not stressed about the thought of getting the money to do something, and I wait to see what the universe brings to me in the form of an idea to make some extra money, or in the form of somebody giving me some extra money, perhaps. But the point is that you always have the ability to do and to trust that you are an abundant being and that you can create what it is that you can create. So I certainly don't see being a single mother as being a death sentence. But you may have to steward your energy differently in order to bring in your money, or to bring in your wealth, and to budget differently, etc. So these are just a few points to think about. Unfortunately, we lost Danielle, but it was such a pleasure to have her on the show. We will have to have her again. We'll see if she can come back into the recording while I am closing out. But either way, it is such a pleasure to have had her on the show and to be able to talk about this very critical topic, because I feel like we kind of don't talk about this topic from a standpoint of there's something different. There's something else that can be done. There's another way to consider this. Being a single parent does not give you a death sentence as a woman. It does not give you a sentence of being poor. It does not give you a sentence of being destitute. It doesn't give you any of those things. And anybody who tries to put that on you, they need to be expelled from your space. I'm just being honest. Okay. And so that is the Mommy Matters podcast today. We will resume with another episode sometime soon. Look out for my other podcast, which I will be doing with someone else. And that is going to be more so around the coaching that I do. I look forward to hearing from you about my Evolve the Inner Mother online in-person hybrid course, which is launching soon. You can check out my website and find the link for that. And I look forward to engaging with you. Thank you for listening to the Mommy Matters podcast. I am your host, Cecile, and I look forward to having you listen again. Peace and love.
Did you like that? I know it was as informative for you as it was for me. Look, this is a process for all of us. And to keep this process going, I would love to invite you to donate to our podcast. We want to continue to give you high-level content, beautiful content that enlightens and inspires and broadens your vision to elevate you and evolve. So please feel free to go to the podcast page at anchor.fm/Mommy Matters. We would love to hear your questions and comments as well, so that we can discuss them in future podcasts. And you can email that to momevolve@gmail.com. You can also visit the website and send your comments there. www.mommyevolve.com. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace and love.